Every time I look at this chubby little guy, he makes me smile. Every single time. Hello, I'm Gina, and the statue I have next to me here is by Collectibles, and it's appropriately titled the Nom Nom Chubby Wolverine. And if you visited my channel before, you know that I love this type of stylized art. I'm a big fan of caricatures of famous icons, and this, of course, is a parody of the iconic X-Men Wolverine. And the story that's being told here is, well, what if Wolverine was a pudgy overeater? He's surrounded by hamburgers and serving himself scoops of ice cream from Magneto's helmet. This statue turns everything upside down. This guy's all about the food. Now, this junk food and his chubby body go hand in hand. Now, this type of art has actually been quite successful in pop culture. Cartoonist Scotty Young has made a name for himself reimagining our favorite superheroes. And the Japanese even have a name for this type of cute art. They call it kawaii. And I can see some of the hallmarks of kawaii in this chubby Wolverine statue. Now, this piece may be cute and adorable, but make no mistake, it's not a toy. This is a polystone statue that, ironically enough, is pretty heavy for its size. I didn't weigh it, but it feels to be approximately 5 pounds in weight. Now, even though the statue has a very stylized and unique design, it's still easily recognizable as Wolverine, starting with its portrait. So the look on his face has this fierce expression. But instead of looking dangerous, his enormous cheeks just lightens up the entire statue. And these cheeks are one of my favorite features. And as you can see here, the skin tone has this beige hue, similar to any cartoon character, which I think makes perfect sense. Okay, so fans of Wolverine are familiar with his scruffy facial hair, and on this portrait he has a goatee that is actually engraved into his chin. Now, the paint application is good, but you know, personally I don't find this facial hair to be essential to the statue, and I think that the portrait would work with or without the beard. So in regards to the body outfit, you can see that the statue has stayed sort of faithful to Wolverine's classic yellow and tiger stripe costume, which I prefer. And that's because there's so many out-of-the-box elements with this statue that, you know, I want Wolverine to be in his classic yellow costume because I want it to be easily recognizable as Wolverine. You know, I probably would not have gotten the statue if it had Wolverine in any one of his other alternate costumes. I think from a design perspective, I think the statue works better with Wolverine in his yellow costume. Now let's take a closer look at all the texturing that's layered throughout this costume. You can see the surface is completely raised. And on this chubby Wolverine, I really like how this effect was executed, especially how the tiger stripes are elevated. Now, on camera, his costume radiates with a bright, intense yellow, but what is difficult to see on camera are the darker highlights. So let me take this opportunity now to focus on Magneto's helmet, filled with what looks to be ice cream scoops. Other than the ice cream, it's pretty identical to Magneto's helmet from the comics, right down to the glossy metallic paint. You know, in the comics, Wolverine is always shown with a six-pack of muscular abs. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, you know, this statue turns everything we know about Wolverine upside down. And that's probably most evident with this massive midsection. Alright, so there's two features on this statue that I cannot forget to mention, and the first is that the claws are metal and extremely sharp, which sort of reiterates the point that this is not a toy. And the second feature is that the hamburger can actually be removed from the claw and be placed anywhere along the statue. Now, I actually prefer the hamburger on the claw. It sort of makes him look even more hungry and vicious. Now, speaking of hamburgers, there's hamburgers littered all throughout the base. Now, I actually counted, and there's a total of 7 hamburgers sculpted onto the base, and then the removable hamburger on his claw makes a total of 8 hamburgers. And what I love about these hamburgers is that they set the tone for the entire statue. It shows this chunky Wolverine as an adorable overeater who has no control over his insatiable appetite. Now, if you look closely at the hamburgers, you can see that they're not your typical hamburgers. They're actually cheeseburgers. Now, each has sculpted lettuce and what looks to be a thick slice of tomato. So no detail was left out of these cheeseburgers. But on top of the burger buns are sesame seeds. So I kind of wish that the sesame seeds were just a tad larger so that they would stand out a little more. Alright, so what's pretty easy to see here is how these burgers are stacked on top of one another. And this base reminds me of an overindulgent feast. And the sheer amount of these burgers, I think, definitely enhances the simple black base. Okay, so in summary, I'd say that this statue is an obvious satire of Wolverine. It takes everything that we know and love about Wolverine, like his cowl, his claws, his yellow costume, and his animal instincts, and then it infuses a ton of humor. This piece is designed to make you smile or laugh, even if you're not a fan of Wolverine. And I think that that's the greatest asset of this statue. Okay, so we reached the end of this video, and as always, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, but more importantly, I hope it was helpful. Take care.